Okay, good afternoon, everyone. The brief Tim's given me for this webinar is about how to access natural capital payment opportunities. And I want to make three key points, and there's three key points that I'd like to focus on. Firstly, to outline what we mean by natural capital in the market context, and what some of the ecosystem service opportunities that can be realized. Secondly, to briefly explain our approach, our methodology, and how it can be practically applied. And thirdly, to demonstrate using a case study from our international work, how we can unlock value and inform decision making. So part of the problem with natural capital is that it means different things to different people, and it's not always well understood. We take a simple market approach because we believe natural capital frames the environment as a productive asset and includes it in economic decision making. So recognition of its value is vital, particularly when revenue opportunities have not historically reflected their significance. So through our approach, we see an asset. So this can be soil, grasslands, woodlands, water, wetlands, biodiversity, as something that underpins a current realized value in the form of, say, agriculture or timber production. These are the more obvious ecosystem services provided, but there are often less visible services provided too. Including, this can include carbon sequestration, natural flood defenses, water filtration, and species habitat, and they can have associated payment streams as well. And this is quite often what we take for granted, or we just assume is happening to the full potential. It's critical to see the wider environmental impacts that a landholding is currently providing, as well as their worth and the potential of what it could provide. It doesn't matter that these additional services are secondary or tertiary to what's often a primary revenue source. They're still of importance and still of value. And it's the monetization of this value in the form of payments for ecosystem services that our approach seeks to unlock. So where's the money coming from? That's always top of everybody's list. Everybody wants to know it. And primarily, you've got potential revenue streams can come from public or private sources. So this figure represents the four broad revenue streams in silos. So public subsidy, landholders will ultimately jump through the set hoops if they want the public subsidy. But the private payments, primarily in the form of corporate offsetting, generally with a carbon focus, ecosystem service payments, generally from a water focus, but air is starting to creep in there, and biodiversity net gain from a development focus, are far more difficult to achieve. So how can we identify natural capital payment opportunities, and what are the key factors that are important to informing a deal? So David has eloquently and in more detail spoken about net gain, but I would just highlight the importance of these three factors: proximity, scale, and impact. Developers need to look to third-party landholders for land to deliver this, and as such, these factors become important. Corporate offset. Carbon likely will form a central aspect to any deal, but it's not just about carbon. We believe that the recognition of biodiversity and social worth will help enhance and facilitate corporate offset. So this is where you see your carbon plus deal, that corporate offset, so carbon plus biodiversity, carbon plus social. And the wider and greater impact that this approach achieves makes a deal more attractive. So ultimately, corporate offset is about realizing a deal between a landholding and a partnership. That landholding or partnership and the offset partner or partners, which means it's not the same as a straight carbon credit deal. So let's just address additionality, because that's always what comes up here. Concept of additionality in the UK has been a major handbrake to achieving carbon-based deals. Additionality, and that's alongside the high startup costs that the European Union's ETS emission trading system have, as well as the gold standard or the RED Plus accreditations often used internationally, means that really tree planting or permanent land use change are the only options if you want to access this type of system. That's not to say that corporates don't want additionality, and they absolutely will do, because they want the most bang for their buck. But offset plus deals are not beholden to the same straitjacketed rules around additionality. So of course, detailed and accurate carbon calculations, measurements and verification are critical, but the proximity afforded when both parties are within the UK adds to that accountability. And I'm going to touch on this a little bit later in our international case study. Soil often sits between these offset and ecosystem service opportunities. So soil, particularly peats, which can act as a significant carbon sink, where management practices affecting their quality and condition are really important in their ability to sequestrate and store carbon. So just by way of an example, improving soil organic matter content is just part of the solution to sequestering more carbon. If you're not measuring that and you aren't able to demonstrate that, you're not going to be able to access any of those potential opportunities. Ecosystem services in general tends to be focused around water quality, and there's lots of good examples out there of water companies working with partnered landscapes in order to improve water quality and mitigate some of their filtration costs, and particularly after frankly the horrendous winter that we've got through and the amount of rain we've had. Upstream flood alleviation schemes will start to gain traction as well. Man-made barriers, quite simply, they're very expensive and they only work to a certain level. There's also zero additionality. So wetland creation in the right place could have an impact on all of these. Competitive advantage represents how businesses may benefit from incorporating environmental benefits and upside in their strategies. It may be on their holding alongside their current primary income generation focus. So, for example, for a solar or wind or a forestry fund, or by offering investors greater environmental or social impact through their investment, whilst also ensuring a financial return. That's the sort of the ESG part of the criteria, because those guys are able to add value and recognition to their product. Let's just make it really simple. This is not philanthropy. Philanthropy can get us so far, but actually there needs to be financial upside for significant impact to be realized across the board and across the country. And I just want to quickly tip my hat to marketing and reputation management in the bottom center there, because this is significant as well. This is how businesses and products that choose to be carbon neutral or sustainably sourced are able to differentiate themselves from other businesses and products. And hats off to the likes of Microsoft, who have committed to removing their historical carbon footprint, by way of an example. But so what does this mean for your business? Well, simply, it's about trying to monetize these options and how they fit within the dynamics of risk and return. So we look at this as trying to building a yield stack or revenue stack for your business. You've got core farm benefits or core benefits that you can have initially. So that might come in the form of improved soil and therefore crop margins, or competitive advantage that I've just mentioned when selling your products or your farm service, or providing that extra degree of climate resilience. I'm sure anyone who's got it available to them enhances their yield stack with the likes of BPS, countryside stewardship, high level stewardship. And I suspect where available, they'll do this for elms as well. This is relatively low risk and is likely to be widely accessible. Many holdings have diversified with renewables or tourism. Let's take glamping for an example. Can a glamping experience be enhanced by the benefits of other natural capital opportunities like biodiversity net gain? In many cases, yes, I absolutely believe they can be. Private deals like those we've mentioned have gone through. So the returns are of course related to risk and likelihood, and they're obviously very property specific. Some won't be relevant, available, or possibly even appropriate for all. But where they are, they can start to open up and access these income streams. So what do natural capital opportunities discuss? What do they all need? Simply put, information that provides a solution. So we've got enough uncertainty out there, and that was before we added the implications of COVID-19 to the mix. We've got uncertainty around ELMS and as it's formulated, uncertainty around the development of this nascent private market, and that's exactly what this is. uncertainty around defined measurement standards, and the fact that measurements themselves don't translate into money. We feel that it's advisable that if landholders want to benefit from these opportunities as they come online, they need to position for them now. So the private market requires all parties to be proactive and entrepreneurial. You know, how can you go out there, source a deal, negotiate, and secure those payments if you're not entrepreneurial and proactive? Do we actually believe they're going to come to us? So that's where Nature Capital are positioned. We're there to bridge the gap between the data measurement and the market. This middle piece, in terms of recognizing and quantifying the natural capital, is critical to informing and realizing the benefits. So whilst I'm not going to sit here and pretend I've got all the answers, what I do have is a rigorous market approach that can provide a clear framework to support decision making. So you're wondering what our methodology is. And well, if you as a landholder, land manager, landowner, if you guys, if you were to come to us, we would apply our natural capital realization model. So this looks at 6 special impact factors and allows us to quantify the worth, impact, and potential of the natural capital present on your holding. So let's start with land use. So land use is an assessment of the land holding's category, scale, and condition. And biodiversity, this looks in particular at the presence of at-risk species and the habitat's diversity and their significance. Connectivity represents how the landholding within the context of its wider landscape and surroundings, and it recognises the impacts of the likes of the buffer zone, for example. Hope, so this is originated sort of out of Hope Valley, and this sets the landholding in the context of the national picture, representing where there's a limited supply and or a growing demand nationally. And it's really important to have your specific property in mind, but also what's happening in the national picture as well. Ecosystem integrity. So this is about recognizing the impact of the 4 categories of relevant ecosystem services. So supporting, regulating, provisioning, and cultural. And this is really important because it demonstrates what services we as humans are being provided by that landholding. And sustainability. So sustainability is measured over time by setting a series of key performance indicators aligned to the objectives that have been set and compared against the baseline. And this enables value to be calculated, but also to be built over a period of time. So we utilize 40 standardized metrics, but ultimately our model is only as good as the information that we can feed into it. In light of property specific data, we can apply local or national information so that we can, as a bare minimum, provide an assessment of the whole to inform your decision making. So yes, of course, we'd like more detailed site-specific data, but and some of you will have that, brilliant, you know, you're ahead of the game if you like, but I suspect the majority of you probably don't have all the site-specific data that you might need. And it's in this instance where we believe that 70% of the picture on time, which is now, we need it now, is better than 100% that's either unaffordable or never comes. So let's look at an example. Actually, this is also a good opportunity to mention Mopani Capital, our sister company, and where I started out. So our methodology has originated from Mopani's natural capital asset model, which has the ability to take what we do a step further because it prices the risk and the value and the risk. And Mopani remains focused on the international market, but also provides the valuation capability for Nature Capital in the UK if it's required. And Mopani is generally, we've applied our approach internationally, often on assets with a conservation focus and predominantly throughout Africa, but we've done one in Panama and one Southeast East Asia as well. So let's take this project as a quick example. The project Mopani advised on in Gabon for a family office. There's a big difference in scale. First up, 630,000 hectares of aggregated forest, savanna, river and marine ecosystem. Amazing project, sits in between 2 national parks and a marine reserve. And just to give you an idea of scale, so this is 630,000 hectares, roughly twice the size of Gloucestershire. So it's a whopping great big place. The scale and the verified additionality that allowed the client to trade in the voluntary carbon market with REDD+ credits is absolutely key. And I recognise, we've spoke about additionality earlier, I recognise that the additionality calculations in the UK are different and harder to achieve. But my point is that the approach and the methodology that we utilise has been what's been able to underpin the value realisation for this example. So just to conclude, a couple of key takeaways. We believe all landholders, landowners, land managers need to recognise and quantify what natural capital assets they have to inform their decision-making process and manage their exposure to risk. So it doesn't matter if you're a traditional farm or estate, landscape partnership, an organisation, or even a fund. There's a common goal to better understand and appreciate the natural capital on your land. So our approach sets a framework to do exactly this whilst positioning to realise these payment opportunities. I've put our websites up there, naturecapital.co.uk and mopanicapital.com, my email. If you've got any questions, drop me a line, please do get in touch. I hope that's been of interest and helpful. Thank you. Tim, I'm sending this back to you now.